Okay, I hadn't actually planned to do a video this morning, but something just happened that has triggered something in me, and I just need to have a little tricky talk. So this is something that I feel needs addressing, and basically it comes down to courtesy on the road. Something that a lot of truckies will know about, especially truckies like myself who've been doing it for quite a while. I've noticed a shift over the years. Hang on a second. B train northbound, Windy Point. And so I'm driving over Remataka Hill at the moment, from Wellington over to Masterton. And because I'm running empty, you know, I get up the hill at a pretty good clip, and I had a few cars behind me. They neglected to use any of the passing lanes to get past me. I was getting along alright, but usually I pull over at the summit, because coming down this side, cars seem to go a bit faster coming down the hill for some reason. I don't know why, but and I tend to go a bit slower, just because depending on the surface, you know, you come down a bit fast, and sometimes you can campers on the corners, you can end up locking up axles and stuff. I just don't like to drive that fast down this hill. It's not a good hill to be driving too fast on, because sometimes you're going to stop on corners, sometimes you come across people on your side of the road. It's better to drive slow. So anyway, I pulled over in the rest area at the top of the hill. It's not a slow vehicle lane, it's not a passing lane, it's literally a car park for the lookout at the top of Remataka Hill. And I had, I think, 3 cars behind me, but once I pulled over, another bunch caught up, so we ended up letting 8 cars pass. So at this point I've come to a complete stop. It's not a compulsory pullover area, it's not a slow vehicle lane or anything like that, it's just me trying to be considerate. Pull over, come to a complete stop, let all these cars pass. 8 cars. How many do you reckon turned it out or waved or flicked their hazard lights? 0 cars. So if you ever find yourself driving and you think to yourself you're stuck behind a slow vehicle like a truck, and you think, gosh, I really wish this guy would pull over and let some traffic pass, ask yourself this. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you waved out or tooted out to a truckie? Northbound B train over Windy. Who pulled over to let you pass? You know, like, we used to do it all the time when I first started driving. Truck and trailers, B trains, we were all a lot more considerate, you know, and thought more about other motorists and pulled over. But over the years, a lot of us have become jaded, a lot of us have become a little bit annoyed by the fact that we will often do it. And what a lot of people don't realise is, if you pull over into one of those slow vehicle lanes, for example, on the Kaimai Ranges, or a hill like this, Remataka, it's not a passing lane. You know, if you move over into that slow vehicle bay, or if you move over onto a shoulder or into a rest area, or just anything that's not the main live lane, you immediately give up. You immediately give up right away. So if you pull over, say if you're going up a steep hill, you're going real slow, but there's a big wide shoulder, you move over, and this again, this applies to those slow vehicle bays on the Waikato side of the Kaimai Ranges. If you pull into one of those slow vehicle bays, you get to the end of that bay and you put your indicator on and you start to move out. If you hit a car that's overtaking you, even if it's a car they've pulled out to overtake as the lane's ending, you don't have right of way. You have to stop. You actually legally have to stop, wait till all that traffic has given you a gap to pull back out. And that's why a really good example of this is for those of you who live in Tauranga. If you're heading the other way, Tauriko heading into Tauranga town, at the other side of the bottom of the Kaimais, you go up that big hill, used to be past Belt Road, used to be passing lane, and they've changed it now. They've just made a really wide shoulder, and it's like an optional thing. If you want, you can pull over. And I never do, because if you pull over into that lane and you get to the top of the hill, you want to pull back out, and there's a line of traffic all overtaking you, you have no right of way to pull back out. You have nothing. You have to stop and wait until someone's considerate enough to let you out. And if you come to a complete stop in a truck on a hill like that, no one's gonna stop. No one's gonna go, oh, let's you know, this poor truckie needs to pull out. Which is another thing, you know, I've found recently is in more recent years is want to let truckies out. If you're trying to pull out of a rest area or a car park or a side road, you know, people see a truck and their immediate thought is, oh shit, I better get in front of that guy. I just had actually, I wish I had the camera on this morning actually. I was just heading out of Wellington on the Hutt motorway. I had a guy come from behind me, change lanes into the right hand lane. I was in the left, into the right hand lane, overtook me, indicator on, straight across, and immediately exited the motorway up a side road. He was fine where he was. He could have just stayed behind me, but in his head, he had to get in front of the truck, even though he was literally immediately exiting. In fact, I think I saved it on my dash cam, so I might even pin it onto this video. Northbound B train down the wall, and it's a real shame because, like I say, when I started driving, you know, you went out of your way to pull over. And the other thing people don't think about, that us truckies know about, especially if you've been doing it a while, especially if you've been an owner driver like myself and you're paying for tyres, is if you pull over onto a shoulder, so it's not a passing lane, it's not a live lane, it's just the shoulder of the road, people think, oh, this is plenty wide enough, why doesn't that truck pull over? If you pull over onto that shoulder, you run a very serious, very real risk of picking up debris and getting a puncture. There's a lot of shit that comes off the live lane of the road and goes off to the side onto the shoulder. And if you pull over and drive through that crap, anyone who's done car racing motorsport on a track will know that you have a racing line, and that line is clean. It's swept clean by all the vehicles who are traveling, all the race cars, all the traffic. And as soon as you get off the racing line, they have what they call the marbles, all the little balled up bits of rubber that comes off the tyres, all the crap that falls off the cars, you know, grass that gets dragged onto the track when guys drive off. All of that stuff just sits off that racing line, and it's the same on the shoulder. And if you're driving a big truck, you've got, say this one for example has 34 tyres, that's 34 chances of picking up a nail, a bolt, any sharp piece of metal that's been swept off the side of the road. You know, so you got to think about that stuff. You're going to pull over, you got to think about it. You get a puncture, can be anywhere from $300-400 through to $12, $13, $14, whatever single steer tyres are now. You know, plus a call out, plus the time lost, you know, downtime sitting on the side of the road. You run a very serious risk of doing that if you pull over to let traffic pass just on a shoulder or just on the side of the road. And why would you do that? Honestly, why would you do that? And a 50-ton truck come to a complete stop and let slow traffic pass if no one's even going to bother to thank you, to show any kind of gratitude whatsoever. So just bear it in mind next time you drive, and if a truckie pulls over to let you pass, obviously this is not to the truckies because we know, but if you're watching this and you're not a truckie and you're not aware, and actually I'll be honest, I've found more and more lately, I've been doing it for truckies. I've been letting truckies out of sight. I've been, you know, guys trying to pull out of side roads on busy Auckland streets, for example. And you flick your lights, here, away you go, mate. And it's often now, these guys will pull out, not even a wave, nothing on the CV, they just pull straight out. And you just think, yeah, you're welcome. I guess I'll just go fuck myself. And it over time, it plants that seed of, why would I bother? Why would I bother? No one gives a shit. Why would I bother? Why would I bother pulling over? Why would I bother slowing down and letting traffic pass? And it fosters that attitude of, oh well, no one gives a shit about me, so why should I care about anyone else on the road? And that's a real shame because, you know, our roads are a shared space. We need to be considered. The whole point of safer roads and you know, people using our roads more efficiently is about consideration, and that's one thing I definitely found driving overseas. In the UK, I was in the UK for a month last year driving around, and I just was blown away by how considerate other road users are, just because New Zealand drivers are so selfish, so self-centered, so self-absorbed. They're just, like I say, I've had people, you know, like I've had people overtake me just to stop a minute later because they're just in their head, they're like, I've got to get past this truck. And you know, as many of us truckies will know too, you'll get someone to pass you on a passing lane, and then you'll spend the next 25-30 minutes stuck behind them around all the corners that you know the road like the back of your hand and you can drive all too well, but you're stuck behind someone who doesn't know the road because they just had to get past the truck on the one bit of road was the passing lane. And don't even get me started on the whole speeding up on passing lanes thing either. That's a whole other tricky talk. We'll do that one another day. But that's just wanted to share that with you while I did a bit of driving. Yeah, a little bit of a rant for the morning. So I've got that off my chest. I feel better already. So yeah. Happy driving, safe driving, and considerate driving, everyone.